Chapter 935. Whether it was the degree of completion or the timing, this series of arrangements were perfect. This regret disappeared in the blink of an eye. He was filled with ambition. When Sophie and the rest completed their metamorphosis, it would be the day he swept through the sacred Saint Galaxy. The great clan elder frowned. The spirit general's quality was average, but it was better than nothing. He waved his hand lightly, and the spirit general flew out of the halo and fell into the sea of golden holy flames. When the spirit general flew out of the halo, the originally calm sea of holy flames immediately became restless. Countless of holy flames swarmed over, and in the blink of the eye, the spirit general was enveloped by the holy flames. The golden holy flames turned red, transforming into a red fireball that floated above the sea of holy flames. For the great generals at the front lines to be suspicious of each other, such a thing actually happened to the honorable martial continent that was famed for being united. How could Qiu Hua not laugh bitterly? Sure enough, there were only wrong names, not wrong nicknames. No matter how daring a person was, they would never think that he could infiltrate the honorable martial continent. As he continued to comb through the information, he made many discoveries. His request to enter the Shang continent was rejected by Go Qing Wendao, and he had no choice but to retreat to a small continent along the supply route. He didn't expect that after hurrying back to reinforce them and paying such a heavy price, this would be the result. He was a little disheartened. The first time the Gold Continent bandits appeared was in the Western region. The Honorable Marshal's roar was modified in the Western region's warship graveyard. And the battle where Lieutenant General Colin fell also happened in the Western region. What a coincidence. The continuous fall of 3 lieutenant generals shocked the entire Honorable Marshal continent, and also caused the hearts of the people to waver, causing the prestigious families to become restless. The era that belonged to the light, the era that belonged to Temple, the era that belonged to him was about to arrive. The changes in the Saint Continent had not ended, but Qiu Hua had a premonition that the godlike young lad would be the final victor. Up till now, Temple still did not know what kind of ferocious monster they were facing. With so many holy flames, it would be a waste if he did not make use of them. For example, he suddenly realized that unknowingly, since when the Honorable Martial Continent's reaction had become extremely passive and helpless. There seemed to be a pair of invisible hands behind the scenes, quietly pushing everything forward. What made him even more shocked was that the pair of black hands in the Southern Alliance had a tacit understanding. Behind the Golden Door of Light was another space. The Golden Door of Light floated in mid-air, and right below it was a faint circle of light. The circle of light was burning with transparent flames. Outside the halo was a surging holy flame that resembled a golden ocean. Grand Elder was unmoved. He stared at the circle of light indifferently. One of the survivors did not turn into ashes. His body was covered in transparent flames, and his expression was one of agony. His flesh was like oil, slowly melting and igniting until it disappeared. A moment later, only a faint shadow was left standing quietly within the circle of light. His expression was wooden, and there was a light pattern between his eyebrows. Now that the Qiu family had been abandoned by the aristocratic alliance, it meant that even if the aristocratic alliance was in power, the Qiu family would not have a good future. Moreover, the Qiu family had suffered heavy losses and he was the only one left. This made him think of a phrase: a single tree cannot hold up the fort. What could be more suitable than a former powerhouse that had suffered a heavy blow? The alliance of the powerhouses urgently needed to replenish their consumption after taking power. Qiu Hua understood the aristocratic families very well. He understood their way of doing things, he understood their coldness and greed, and it would be the same for the Qiu family. He and the Qiu family were in grave danger. For the Qiu family to join the prestigious families first, it meant that the Qiu family was already blacklisted by Temple. With the power of the Holy Cathedral, if they managed to suppress the rebellion, Autumn would definitely not be able to escape the fate of being punished. The clue that Qiu Hua had found was coincidentally the Qiu family. The destruction of the Qiu offense army had shocked Qiu Hua for a long time, and because of that, Macefield Tradings had entered his sights. If they weren't directly related, such a small family wouldn't attract any attention at all. When Qiu Hua was studying Macefield Tradings, he suddenly realized that the group of people from Macefield Tradings came from the West. He immediately thought of the series of unforeseen events that had happened in the West. The fall of 2 lieutenant generals was definitely not a small matter. For example, when their supply line was attacked, Go Qingwendao's troops needed reinforcements, and he and Moxin were attacked at the same time. And at the same time, the usually stable honorable martial continent was in a state of panic. The Gold Continent bandits, Sin Domain and honorable marshals' roar wreaked havoc, causing the local armies to be pushed back, causing the honorable martial continent, which had many soldiers and generals, to fall into an awkward situation. Qiu Suhua looked out the window. The rain continued to fall and he was in a daze. Regardless of who the victor was to the Qiu family, it was a terrible outcome. The only difference was that one was being settled while the other was being swallowed. But when Qiu Suhua sorted out the entire situation, he realized in sorrow that the honorable martial continent had completely lost all hope of winning. He then realized that the leader of the Southern Alliance, who did not have any sense of existence, was actually extremely powerful. To rely on his own strength to change the entire situation, there is actually such a person in the world. Qiu Suhua laughed bitterly in his heart. Before the Southern expedition, they had always looked down on the Southern Alliance. But after the battle, the strength of the Southern Alliance's generals gradually gained their recognition. But the leader of the Southern Alliance did not seem to have any sense of existence. He felt that it was a pity for the aristocratic alliance. The disciples of the aristocratic families were more outstanding, and who knew they might produce a few good spirit generals. But the aristocratic alliance were old and experienced and were not easy to trick. It would not be easy to trick them through the cross door. Looking back, everything happened in an extremely short period of time. It was all coincidental and tacit. From the various signs, it was a trap that the honorable martial continent had nowhere to hide. But Qiu Suhua could not say anything. The Qiu family had bumped into them and could not blame anyone else. It could only be said that the other party was too powerful, their plans were profound, and every step they took was extremely powerful. Not only that, the fall of the two lieutenant generals directly caused the western region to be emptied of military strength, which was the foreshadowing of the series of wars that happened after that. Luckily, his intention was to prepare a group of cannon fodder to support Sophie and the rest. If it was just that, it was still bearable for the honorable martial continent. But coincidentally, at the same time, Go Qingwendao met with a setback in the Shang continent. His fleet was ambushed, his supply line was frantically attacked by the Southern Alliance, and Go Qingwendao had to seek reinforcements. What was even more coincidental was that he and Moxin were attacked at the same time, and were unable to immediately reinforce Go Qingwendao. Just when he was at a loss for the future, he received the message, or rather the invitation, causing his heart to be in a complete mess. The coordination between the two hands made Qiu Suhua suspect that the invisible black hands were the Southern Alliance. It was no secret that the Southern Alliance's leader had disappeared for a period of time, and they had discussed about it before, but everyone felt that the most probable reason was that the Southern Alliance's leader had gone to engage in secret diplomacy and seek reinforcements, such as heading to the Gold Continent. Tang Tian's identity was no longer a secret to Temple, and even his achievements in Heaven's Road were clear to Temple. But to Qiu Suhua and the rest, the achievements in Heaven's Road were not convincing at all, as the intensity of the war in Heaven's Road was too low. But when the Saint Continent changed, he suddenly realized that the other party's true goal was not Go Qingwendao, but the Saint Continent. The other party's series of arrangements were not for the sake of tiring Temple, but for Temple's strength to be continuously deployed outwards, causing their internal defenses to weaken. One by one, the figures turned into ashes. Even Qiu Suhua could guess that Temple's ringing of the holy bell was out of the expectations of the mastermind. The aristocratic alliance's uprising was something that the mastermind did not expect, but the other party knew how to take advantage of the situation. In truth, the other party had done better than what he had expected. The Qiu family had become the first sacrifice. However, the greatest worry in the depths of his heart was revealed by a mysterious message. Suddenly, the great clan elder's eyes lit up. He knew that he and the Qiu family no longer had the qualifications to wait for the mysteries of Saint Continent to be unraveled. This directly led to the ringing of the holy bell, and the gathering of armies in the Saint Continent, which also allowed the aristocratic alliance to see Temple's weakness, and directly caused them to exert pressure on Temple. All of a sudden, the good situation of the southern expedition disappeared. For an entire 3 days and 3 nights, he did not close his eyes as he tried his best to sort out the news. The flames of war were rising in the country, the southern expedition was in an urgent situation, and the anxious Temple decided to ring the holy bell. This decision directly removed the shackles on the necks of the aristocratic families, and allowed the aristocratic families who had been dormant to see an opportunity. He had to bet himself and his family before that and await the opening of the cup. The crack between the three of them was known to the entire world, and the rumors of the internal strife in the honorable martial continent was the hottest topic. Go Qingwendao was a neutral party. He did not wish to offend Temple, nor the aristocratic alliance. Thus he held on to an unchanging attitude, and waited for the internal strife in the honorable martial continent to settle down. Mo Xian's Mo family was part of the aristocratic alliance, but the news of the aristocratic alliance abandoning the Qiu family was not a secret, and both parties were like fire and water. Truly far-sighted, Qiu Suhua was in awe of the person who set it up. The survivors that stepped in did not even have the time to rejoice as they were incinerated. The transparent flames were not ferocious, but as long as the survivors stepped into the light circle, none of them were spared. The ignorant survivors surged in like a tide, and like a drop of water on a burning hot iron, they transformed into a mist. In truth, when the news had just spread out, he felt that it was strange. Why did the great generals at the front lines not receive the news, but the Southern Alliance spread it out? Since when did the Southern Alliance's information network become even better than the great generals? Mo Xian's fleet that was riddled with scars was similarly rejected by Go Qingwendao, but Mo Xian and him were similarly unable to get together. The great clan elder shook his head in his heart. As expected, the quality of a spirit general is directly related to the strength of the living. The honorable martial banner of knights that transformed into spirit generals were obviously of a higher quality. Out of the many survivors, the majority did not even have the qualifications to become spirit generals. And even if they were to transform into spirit generals, the quality would be extremely ordinary and could only be used as cannon fodder. At the start he thought that the person who set it up was the spirit general commander of the Southern Alliance, but he quickly realized that it was not Bing but Tang Tian. In such a complicated situation, it was too late to control it from afar, and it was a test of one's adaptability. The survivors were endless, but the majority of them were incinerated, and only a few were able to transform into spirit generals. Above the golden holy flame sea, there were many red fireballs that looked like gigantic eggs. Suddenly he thought about the nickname that Temple had for Tang Tian, the godlike young lad. Chapter 936. Ding Dong. The feeling of his soul being nourished was completely different from the joy he felt previously. It was as though his body had become even more free, like a glass that was covered in dust. The dust was slowly being wiped away and his mind became clear. It was as though he was in a dark house. When he opened the windows and allowed the sunlight to shine in, the objects in the house became clearer. Once his soul and body became uncoordinated, the problem would become even more troublesome. An indescribable joy surged from the deepest part of Tang Tian's heart. After a moment, Tang Tian, who had calmed down, realized that his glass-like mental state had become like a cloud, a ball of cotton candy. One after another, the hollowified energy sword auras swept past. Other than creating ripples, they did not cause any harm. It was an indescribable feeling. It was a completely new feeling. He felt that his body was much lighter, and he felt that his soul had undergone an irreversible change. He did not know if it was a good thing or a bad thing, but the feeling was not bad. As expected, he saw a faint image appearing in his body. Get rid of the great clan elder. And Tang Tian was determined to refine his own cotton candy. Oh, it was the shattered glass-like mental state. Suddenly he felt that he was extremely thirsty and subconsciously opened his mouth to suck. It was the best place for Tang Tian to temper his soul, and there was no other place better than this. Where can I find the countless of hollowified energy? Even if his soul was injured during the tempering, he could immediately recover, and like that he did not have to worry about the consequences. A drop of water came out from the cotton candy, transforming into mist and dispersing into the figure's body. He then realized that there were many dimmed spots on the figure, and he knew that they were injuries. Gemini constellation had two spirits in one body, and the two spirits were connected. Upon separation they would definitely be injured. It was like a drop of water on the cliff of a mountain. His soul was currently training in the glass-like mental state. The glass-like mental state was extremely unique. It allowed him to be extremely sensitive to the outside world, and his state of mind to be extremely calm. But compared to his monstrous and tyrannical body, it was still lacking. This was his soul being nourished. Tang Tian's body shook violently. As soon as the water droplet left the cotton candy, it turned into a wisp of mist and dispersed into every corner of Tang Tian's body. Tang Tian was suddenly enlightened. His glass-like mental state had already been crushed to the point where it was smaller than a grain of sand, to the point where the sword light couldn't break it. Then I can only use everything I have to avenge you. He didn't turn into ashes. No matter how much pain he felt, no matter how much he was cut into pieces, he still didn't turn into ashes. Even if he felt that his glass-like mental state had already become a pile of glass sand. Once a soul was injured, it was extremely difficult to heal, much more difficult than healing a spirit general. After all, spirit generals did not have physical bodies and had less to worry about. However, a living person's soul and body were one, and the two could not be separated. Regardless if it was Heaven's Road or Sacred Saint Galaxy, everything related to the soul was an unknown domain, and no one dared to say that they could truly see through the secrets of the soul. Tang Tian even took the time to check on Xian and the others. The pain was still there and he did not know when it would end. Tang Tian felt that he was floating in the bitter sea of hell. Oh, most of the time he was sinking. Thank the great clan elder. That doesn't seem right, it's too miserable. Although they are not my people, but they are still human lives. The hollowified energy was in truth a component of the soul, and it was a unique form of energy. At the start it was the pain of being cut. He felt as though he was a fish that was continuously being cut, from a whole fish to a big piece, from a big piece to a small piece, and from a small piece to a smaller piece. But very quickly the feeling of pain changed. He felt that his spirit, which had already been shattered like gravel, was being continuously ground by countless files. Whoosh! Tang Tian could sense the changes in the undying sword. Strand after strand of qi was being nurtured inside the undying sword. Many things that he did not understand in the past became natural, as though the conditions were right, and he suddenly understood everything. Body and spirit as one, Tang Tian's mind had a trace of enlightenment. Xian's condition was not bad either. His body was also condensing, but it was slightly slower than Xiaoman. Tang Tian noticed the undying sword in Xian's hand. Whenever the hollowified energy sword auras neared the undying sword, they would immediately shatter and transform into a faint mist that was absorbed by the undying sword. The undying sword was like a dried-up sponge, frantically absorbing the hollowified energy around it. The amount of hollowified energy that the undying sword absorbed was more than Xian and Xiaoman combined. I feel as though I am drifting away like a bystander, watching as my own hands are as fast as lightning, and every single emulated law core is unable to escape. But the pain was extremely clear and intense, to the point that he thought that he was going to turn into ashes. The endless hollowified energy allowed him to do all sorts of experiments, so what other place could be better than this? In truth, when he was in Heaven's Road, Tang Tian had spent a lot of effort on tempering his martial spirit. But because he was a Gemini constellation, he and Little Fool shared the same body, and his soul was completely different from an ordinary person. After separating from Little Fool, his soul had been split into two, and the injuries from the split were difficult to heal, which was also the reason why his soul was unable to keep up with the growth of his fleshly body. Tang Tian felt as though his body was like a dried-up field, receiving the nourishment of rain and dew, causing an even more intense feeling of joy to spread throughout his body. Tang Tian felt as though his body had become much lighter, but he knew that it was just a misconception. His body was already close to perfection without any hidden injuries. The spiritual severing brought about an indescribable pain. His body was fine, but the pain seemed to come from the deepest part of his mind, as though it had spread throughout his entire body, leaving him with nowhere to run or hide. The pain from the spiritual severing caused Tang Tian's thoughts to stop, and if one looked carefully, they would be able to see that Tang Tian's eyes had lost their focus. After mending his soul, he did not continue to absorb the hollowified energy like Xiaoman and Xian. The more hollowified energy Xiaoman and the rest absorbed, the better, because they were not restricted by their fleshly bodies. But it was different for Tang Tian. His soul and fleshly body were one, and if his soul grew too strong, it would definitely break the balance between the two. Tang Tian's body had already reached the pinnacle, and was not inferior to any of the legendary figures in history. A tyrannical fleshly body was the foundation of the awakened god armor, and his control over the awakened god armor was becoming more and more outstanding, which proved this point. Compared to the perfection of his fleshly body, his tempering of the soul was far from reaching that realm. The glass mental realm that was twisted into cotton candy was like a dried-up sponge, greedily absorbing the hollow-fied energy. Not only did the thirst not lessen, it became even more intense. Tang Tian continued to absorb the hollow-fied energy with all his might, to the point that the hollow-fied energy was like mist that seeped into Tang Tian's body, and was absorbed by the cotton candy. But the sword auras did not have any intention of giving up. They continued to frantically grind his glass sand even more. Suddenly, Tang Tian, who was filled with fighting spirit, felt that the inside of the sword tempest cyclone was heaven. Time passed slowly, but the cotton candy in the glass mental realm did not have any signs of satisfaction. On the contrary, he did not feel anything from the dense group of swords that were revolving and roaring at high speeds. From the angle of withdrawal, his body did not know fatigue. Not only was it fast, it never missed. It was truly a perfect killing machine, if only he did not scream miserably. The large amount of hollow-fied energy transformed into a stream and was sucked into his mouth. The hollow-fied energy that he sucked in was like a drop of water entering a sand dune. It instantly permeated into Tang Tian's body and was absorbed by the cotton candy. Tang Tian did not know how long had passed, but suddenly the speed at which the cotton candy absorbed the hollow-fied energy slowed down, and at that moment the cotton candy felt as though it was filled with water and was extremely heavy. Right at that moment, a drop of warm and clear water slowly dripped out from the cotton candy. It was Tang Tian's first time seeing his own soul. Inside the sword tempest cyclone formed by the hollow-fied energy, Tang Tian's glass mental realm was shattered by the sword auras formed by the hollow-fied energy. Ordinary things were useless against the soul, even the whirlpool sword spirit tempering technique from back then. If it was an ordinary sword aura, it would be useless against the current Tang Tian. But the sword auras formed by the hollow-fied energy were able to achieve such an effect. While enduring the pain, he admired his own heroism, listening to the sword tempest cyclone's berserk roars and his own screams that were not inferior to his own. The two completely different feelings mixed together. It was a strange and contradictory feeling. It was another kind of pain. He felt as though his edges and corners were being grinded away, and with every setback there would be a short pause in his consciousness. He had a misconception that he was becoming a sphere. He knew that it was just a misconception. His body was unharmed, and he knew that he was still frantically attacking the core of the emulated law. Xiao Ran's condition was the best, she grew the fastest, and her thoughts were the purest. As a spirit general, this point was similar to her outstanding talent when she was alive. It was extremely useful. Her body was constantly being congealed. The hollow-fied energy congealed flesh and bones looked no different from an ordinary person, but it had a layer of sparkling and translucent luster, like the texture of a crystal. It was extremely beautiful. The zanbato in her hand had also changed, becoming even more slender and well-proportioned. The lines were even smoother, the blade's entire body was pitch black, the texture was extremely heavy, and it also had a layer of translucent luster. Unknowingly, his soul had been replenished to perfection. With a thought from Tang Tian, the cotton candy stopped absorbing the hollow-fied energy. Tang Tian's harvest this time was huge, and it surprised him. His original intention was to help Xian, Xiao Ran and the rest, but he never expected that he would be the one who benefited the most. There were many things that he did not understand in the past, but he was now completely enlightened. Furthermore, his own soul was unable to increase in quantity, but it could increase in quality, and that was the true path of cultivation. Without hesitation, Tang Tian began to temper his soul that had just been restored to perfection. Although he needed to experience the pain again, but compared to his own gains, what was the pain? Just as he thought about that, Tang Tian's consciousness suddenly trembled, his entire body became light, as though some invisible shackles in his body had completely shattered, and he suddenly felt light as a feather. The pain that was everywhere disappeared, and the joy of new life rose uncontrollably. Chapter 937. In this aspect he was far inferior to Wuxia. Jiaya admired these soldiers every time she saw them. The army that Wuxia had spent 40 years to create made him gasp in amazement. The temperament of these soldiers was something he had never seen before in other armies. In the period of time that Jiaya had been stationed in the Wei Yiguan continent, he could clearly feel the imprints that Wuxia had left behind everywhere. As long as the soldiers who stayed behind talked about Lord Wuxia, their respect came from the bottom of their hearts. Any disrespectful remarks towards Wuxia would be met with an intense reaction from them. When encountering such a situation, they would often beat the other party up, and then consciously go to the military discipline office to accept punishment. They never shirked their responsibilities. Military discipline was more important than anything else, and it had already become their instinct. It could be seen that Wuxia had a profound influence on them. After this storm he would also retire. There was no meaning to it. Old Tang smiled when he saw Jia Ye's gaze, but he didn't say anything. Jia Ye's face was filled with disbelief at first, but suddenly he recalled the obscure words that Wuxia had said to him as well as some of the rumors in temple, and his face turned pale. Killed by the temple? Jia Ye was dumbstruck. He had thought of countless answers, but he never expected it to be this one. He forced a smile. Why would temple kill Wuxia? This was indeed illogical. Don't be fooled by other people's flowery words. Before he could react, he heard Ming Hai and the others sobbing bitterly. Previously they still had a sliver of hope in their hearts. What the Lord had said was too shocking. But when they heard Jia Ye say that the Saint Continent was sealed by the holy flames, it was as though they were struck by lightning, and their last strand of hope was completely shattered. What's wrong with you guys? Jia Ye stood up and looked at the weeping Ming Hai and the others. For some reason the uneasy feeling in his heart intensified. Looking at the bitter smile on Ming Hai's face, for some reason, Jia Ye felt a chill down her spine. He knew how strong Wuxia's soldiers were. He never expected to see such a bitter smile on their faces. He subconsciously blurted out, "How did they die?" Jia Ye's face turned paler and paler, his body trembling uncontrollably. Ming Hai wiped his tears and said hatefully, "That's right. Master said that temple wants to create many spirit generals and they need a lot of holy flames. That is why temple has been promoting the holy flame, and if there is a special situation temple will." Out of all the generals, Jia Ye admired Wuxia the most. The others all had their own strengths and it was hard to tell who was stronger in terms of combat power, but none of them were as pure as Wuxia. Wuxia was like those old-school generals in history, a pure soldier. Even though Wuxia wasn't around, they still persisted in their training, no different from usual. They were able to endure loneliness and had never gone out to seek pleasure. Their discipline was strict, their sense of honor was strong, and they were united. Jia Ye, who was deep in thought, spoke up. "The Saint Continent has recently been sealed by the holy flames. I do not know what's going on." But then he began to laugh at his own naivety. Even if Wuxia was here, what use would it be? Regardless of whether it was temple or the aristocratic alliance, military generals were just blades in their hearts. What kind of influence could an old general of the border have on the situation? Would the great elder listen to him? Or would the rich listen to him? There wasn't a single general who wouldn't like such a soldier. Jia Ye was a little ashamed. He had an indifferent personality. To put it bluntly, he was lazy. He could not be like Wuxia, who placed all of his energy and thoughts on the soldiers. Wuxia's care and concern for his soldiers was never doubted, and he would definitely not sacrifice his soldiers without any assurance. The risk was one of the reasons, and he did not need to take such a risk to increase his achievements. He had stayed in the Saint Continent for a long time, and his family were all in the Saint Continent if what Ming Hai said was true. His eyes turned black and he almost fainted. He muttered to himself, "It can't be, the great clan elder is not that deranged, he wouldn't dare. Isn't that the same as cutting off all hope? The great clan elder is such an intelligent man, why would he do such a foolish thing? Can't be like that, there must be another reason for the holy flames." When he said this, he glanced at the stranger beside Ming Hai. He was even more unwilling to take action against someone he was familiar with in the past. "I wonder how Wuxia is doing," Jia Ye was worried. Jia Ye persuaded him a few times but did not persist. The soldiers of Wuxia's army were more familiar with defense, and were more alert and more responsible. They were the ones who discovered the attacks of the savage tribe in advance. They were already used to the cold and snow, and it was not the first time that the soldiers under him had complained about the harsh environment. He tried to convince himself, but his voice trembled more and more and eventually became choked with sobs. And in the end he completely lost control of his emotions and started to cry bitterly like Ming Hai and the rest. The mystery of the Saint Continent had not dissipated, and many people were watching coldly from the sidelines, waiting for the dust to settle. Seeing the familiar faces lying in a pool of blood at his feet, he felt that it was difficult for him to face the scene. He recognized the few people in the lead. They were Wuxia's capable generals, and with so many of Wuxia's soldiers appearing at the same time, His first reaction was that Wuxia had surrendered to the enemy. He felt that the thought was absurd. Wuxia surrendered to the enemy? How is that possible? The savage tribe attacked at night? Surrender? Why would Master surrender? Minghai laughed bitterly. Master is dead. Jia calmed down instead. He looked at the leader and spoke indifferently. Minghai, I never thought that it would be you guys. Wuxia surrendered to the savage tribe. He had never participated in any battles and had stayed at the border for over 10 years. He was a simple and thrifty person, loved his soldiers like they were his sons and shared the hardships with them. Regardless of how one looked at him, he was the model of a soldier. The group of people surrounded him, their weapons pointed at him. Old Tang and the old commander looked at Jia, Minghai and the rest in sympathy. Their faces were filled with sorrow. They did not know how to console them. But regardless of anything, the last obstacle in their journey to the Saint Continent was gone. He immediately sobered up and stood up. Before he could do anything, a group of strangers barged in. Jaya's face changed. How can the enemy know where I sleep so clearly? His first thought was that there was a traitor by his side, but when he saw the few people in the lead, his eyes constricted. Dead, they're all dead, our family members are all dead. Minghai cried bitterly and spoke incoherently. Master was burned to death by the holy flame. As long as anyone in the Saint Continent cultivates the holy flame, they will all die. Temple needs their holy flame. Jia could not help but admire Wuxia's construction of the Wei Yiguan continent was like an iron bucket. Wuxia had considered every single detail, and the painstaking work that he had put in over 10 years was truly shocking. His voice trembled. You said everyone in the Saint Continent? As long as they cultivate the holy flame? He was not addicted to alcohol, but would drink a little before sleeping as a way to help him sleep. He had been in a bad mood recently and thus drank more than usual. He did not need to worry about the defense as the important positions were still guarded by the soldiers that stayed behind. This was their insistence because they did not receive Wuxia's order to change defenses. Sounds of fighting could be faintly heard from outside, as well as the angry shouts of his subordinates. That period of time was so beautiful. Wuxia said it himself? Jia frowned. The answer was out of his expectations. What exactly happened? Temple killed them. Minghai gritted his teeth. His expression was sinister and tears flowed down his face. All of Wuxia's old subordinates around him had tears streaming down their faces as they gritted their teeth. Minghai suddenly asked, "What's the situation in the Saint Continent now?" Gradually, Jia became slightly tipsy. He thought about the times when they were young, when they were in high spirits. At that time, the honorable martial continent was extremely united. Everyone's mind was filled with the thought of expanding their territory and unifying the sacred Saint Galaxy. Jia felt that the mood had died down. He picked up the wine cup in front of him and downed it in one gulp. The savage army outside the pass was still clamoring, but everyone was already used to it. Even the soldiers here were frightened at first, but they soon got used to it. The savage army had attempted to attack a few times and even found nearby tribes to be guides, but they were all defeated. For some reason, even though they had successfully taken over the Wei Yiguan continent, the two of them did not feel any joy from victory when they saw the group of iron-blooded men crying. Such a tragedy truly made them feel sorrowful. Sigh, the honorable martial continent has suddenly become unstable. I wonder if Wuxia will be better? Regardless of which camp we are in, who hasn't nodded their heads a few times? There was a reason why Jia was not so insistent, and that was because he felt that he would not stay in the Wei Yiguan continent for long. Wuxia could return at any time, and he was just temporarily pulled over to stabilize the situation. There was no need for him to clash with Wuxia's army over such matters. He knew of Wuxia's infiltration into the savage continent, and the conservative Jia felt that it was too risky. But he also trusted Wuxia's judgment. Wuxia was decisive and resolute, steady and magnanimous, and had the most outstanding view of the big picture out of the five of them. And he had operated in the Wei Yiguan continent for over 10 years, and was more familiar with the situation in the savage continent than them. For Wuxia to make such a judgment and decision, he definitely had his reasons and had a certain degree of confidence. Other people's soldiers were more trustworthy than his own soldiers, and that made Jia unhappy for a period of time. Of course, the unhappiness was only towards himself. Minghai shook his head. No one can lie to us. Master died right in front of us, and that was what Master told us personally. If not for Ming Hai and the rest surrounding him, he would have felt that it was blasphemy against Wuxia. Goqing Wendao, who was far away in the Shang continent, felt the same way, and so did Jiaya, who was stationed in the Wei Yiguan continent. Jiaya was even thankful to the savage army. If not for them, he would not be able to escape from the circle of right and wrong in the Saint continent. Being a subordinate of the emperor was undoubtedly glorious, but if he were to stand on the wrong side, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. The risks involved were unimaginable. Chapter 938. Cliff had no choice but to come out. Now we can only defend and wait for reinforcements. Our strength is still relatively intact. If we can hold on for a period of time, the reinforcements from the temple should arrive. The mastermind hiding in the shadows had finally found the most fatal opportunity. He had no intention of waiting any longer. When Goqing Wendao received Qiu Suhua's request, he was extremely hesitant, and called the three of them over to discuss. After discussing, they made the decision. All of them were afraid of the honorable martial continent's power struggle. The Qiu family's fall from grace had caused them to not have too many misgivings. Furthermore, as long as they remained silent, they would be able to come up with an excuse in the future. Master's meaning is that the Southern Alliance's target is the rear? Cliff, who was always calm, stuttered. The great clan elder's gaze was like a burning flame, looking at the densely packed red fire cocoons shattering at the same time on the holy flame sea. His heart was slightly agitated. He felt a little regretful. Wuxia had always been the military general he admired the most, but Wuxia had refused to participate in his plan. Even Cliff and the rest could guess that the Southern Alliance would definitely surround them and not attack them and exhaust them to death. The decisive battle was about to begin. But even if they knew, what could they do? In the great clan elder's plan, he was not prepared to build a spirit general army so early, but Duke's appearance had prompted him to bring it forward. But this way the great elder was completely relieved. If he had been a little worried before, he was no longer worried now. He did not believe that there was any army in the world that could contend against his spirit general army. Furthermore, he sensed that the holy flame seed in Wuxia's body had been activated. Wuxia was already dead. He had passed this hurdle and no one could stop him or his spirit general army. His era would begin with this battle. Qiu Suhua looked at Xie Yuan, who was in front of him absent-mindedly. This was the first time he saw this famous general, but he did not expect it to be in such a situation. The honorable martial continent is in danger. Qiu Suhua, this traitor, should arrive. When Goqing Wendao heard that, he sneered, "Arrive my ass. These idiots were fighting to the death. Even if the battle is over, they'll still be busy cleaning up the mess and supporting us? Who will remember us?" The collapse of the honorable martial continent's front lines actually came so quickly. Even though he had sided with the Southern Alliance, Qiu Suhua could not help but feel gloomy. They had once thought that they were invincible, but reality had hit them hard. This time, even the honorable martial continent was in danger. And Qiu Suhua had astutely deduced that the Southern Alliance's intention was definitely not just the Shang continent. Everyone was silent. As for the ordinary spirit generals that the great clan elder was nurturing, after absorbing a large amount of holy flames, their strength had become much stronger than when the honorable martial banner of knights were alive. More importantly, the numbers on both sides were not on the same level. Her dark red eyes were indifferent. She stood silently in front of the great clan elder, her holy flames fluttering in the wind. The sun pattern on his forehead was magnificent and noble. At this moment, everyone's faces were filled with dejection, and the atmosphere became gloomy. This slash was so fatal that they didn't have any strength to fight back. His invincible spirit general army had broken out of its cocoon. With an outstanding military general like Sophie, 12 honorable martial spirit knights as the backbone, and a large number of obedient and powerful spirit general soldiers, they could form an extremely powerful spirit general army. After a while, Goqing Wendao calmed down and called them over. When everyone saw Goqing Wendao's appearance, they were all shocked. The master's face was bloodshot, his expression extremely gloomy. To him, this battle was the most important battle. Whether it was success or failure, everything depended on this battle. If he won the Saint Continent, he would win the Honorable Martial Continent, and he would win the Sacred Saint Galaxy. Qiu Suhua was surprised. Generals that had just become famous would usually have an air of arrogance. but the Xieyuan in front of him was extremely warm and reserved, as calm as water. Qiu Suhua praised him in his heart. He was extremely cooperative. No problem, then I will leave this place to General. Everyone remained silent, their eyes dimmed. They knew that it was truly an extravagant hope for reinforcements at such a time. What was more important was the supplies. Their army had been preserved the most, which meant that they needed more supplies. Now that their supply line had been cut off, they could not replenish their supplies, and when their supplies ran out, it would be their doomsday. In the history of the Honorable Martial Continent, there had never been a great general who had surrendered, and Qiu Suhua was the first. If the news were to spread, it would immediately cause a huge uproar. It was the worst thing that had happened to the Honorable Martial Continent, and it was much more severe than any of their previous losses. After a while, everyone came to their senses and their faces couldn't help but change. Goqing Wendao suddenly said those words out of nowhere, causing everyone to be startled and unable to react in time. They could not defend and could not run. That was their current predicament. Sophie, who had completed her transformation, was the great clan elder's most perfect masterpiece, and that was what the great clan elder was most satisfied with. No matter how loyal Mu Jixia and the rest were, they could not compare to spirit generals. Goqing Wendao waited for a while, but no one spoke up. He became anxious and raised his voice. Is there no other way? Take the initiative to attack. Now everyone could deeply feel the impact that their own fleet had been ambushed, and it had a profound impact on them. Suddenly, a thought surfaced in his mind. The final battle that would decide the outcome of the Southern Alliance and the Honorable Martial Continent had arrived. Everyone else was shocked. It was the final decisive battle, and the main character of the battle was not the unprecedented Southern Alliance army, but Tang Tian, who was hidden within the Honorable Martial Continent. The 12 Honorable Martial Banner of Knights that had transformed into spirit generals. Although they were not as outstanding as Sophie, but as the backbone of the entire spirit general army, they were more than enough. They had thought of countless of possibilities, but they had never thought that Qiu Suhua would want to surrender to the Southern Alliance. The Qiu family was a prestigious family of the Honorable Martial Continent, and even if they failed, it was not to the extent of forcing Qiu Suhua to surrender. Alright, they no longer needed to consider the severity of the storm it would cause. They needed to worry about their own situation, which was truly terrible. General Qiu, this subordinate has received orders to replace your esteemed unit here. Xieyuan's tone was calm and courteous, without the arrogance of a victor. Now tell me, what other ideas do you have? Qiu Suhua knew that Goqing Wendao was finished. Thinking about how they had rejected Qiu Suhua previously, all of their hearts were filled with bitterness and regret. Their warships had suffered heavy losses, which meant that it was impossible for them to break through Qiu Suhua's blockade. Although their armies were more intact than Qiu Suhua, but Qiu Suhua had blocked their path of retreat and held the initiative. To think that they could break through Qiu Suhua's blockade without warships was undoubtedly wishful thinking. He was excited and expectant. They had planned for so long and paid so much, wasn't it, for victory? Suddenly, a crisp sound came out from the holy flame sea, like the sound of an eggshell breaking. The sound of an eggshell breaking was like a fuse being lit. Countless of eggshells breaking sounded out at the same time. Like a tide it sounded out. Goqing Wendao's hysterical voice could be heard from afar, but no one dared to step forward. Cliff and the other two were filled with fear. They never thought that at such a time Qiu Suhua would actually stab them in the back. Even Mu Jixia and the rest could not do it. Where else can we go? A look of pain flashed past Goqing Wendao's eyes, but he sneered. Could it be that at such a time the Southern Alliance will still place their target on us? Wake up, we are already cooked ducks. An all-out attack, this is an all-out attack. Those fools, everyone is finished this time. The Southern Alliance had deployed Xieyuan, who was proficient in defense, to stand guard here, to completely trap Goqing Wendao. Sophie's aura was completely different from before. The transformation had completely changed her. The Sophie in front of him was like a cold killing machine. As long as he gave the order, she would destroy the enemy. Qiu Suhua could not help but think about Tang Tian, who was still inside the Honorable Martial Continent. Thinking about Tang Tian and Bing's tacit understanding and coordination, his heart trembled. The Southern Alliance was planning to launch an all-out attack. Not only did Sophie's individual strength increase by leaps and bounds, her ability to command when she was alive was completely preserved. Sophie was a true elite that Temple had spent countless of effort to groom, and very few people knew that the current 5 great generals were once Sophie's teachers. This was also why the great clan elder pushed Sophie to the position of commander of the Banner of Knights, because only the commander of the Banner of Knights had the qualifications to receive the guidance of the 5 great generals. And the Saint Continent that possessed an inexhaustible supply of holy flames would become Temple's most important place to replenish their soldiers. The great clan elder looked at Sophie in front of him and revealed a satisfied look. Sophie did not disappoint the great clan elder's expectations. She displayed outstanding talent and obtained the recognition of the 5 great generals. And from then on, Sophie's position as the commander of the Banner of Knights was truly stabilized, and no one doubted her anymore. For those who could not keep up with his footsteps, no matter how outstanding they were dead. Because they rejected Qiu Hua's army's entry into the Shang continent, Qiu Hua was forced to station in a small continent along the supply route. Qiu Hua's surrender to the Southern Alliance meant that their supply route and path of retreat were all cut off. And the Shang continent had no defenses, they were not proficient in defense, and the current them were like turtles in a jar. Go Qing Wendao muttered he was at a loss. The great clan elder did not hesitate to groom Sophie just for the sake of today. He needed a military general with high standards, and this military general had to be loyal to him unconditionally. Sophie had become different, as though she had been reborn. The armor on her entire body was enveloped in a layer of golden holy flames. The holy flames silently swallowed and released a natural might. Her entire body, only her face was not covered by the holy flames, but a dark gold mask covered half of her face, revealing only a pair of dark red eyes. Chapter 939. All of Tang Tian's experiences and realizations flashed past his eyes in that moment. After 10,000 years, the Southern Cross Army's war flag once again flies. You have a spirit general army, so do I. Then let us see whose army is stronger. Every time it jumped, it would release a 7-colored glass light aura. Inside the gorgeous 7-colored glass light aura, countless of fine black lines could be seen swimming around. In the deep and dark seabed, one after another, illusory figures stood in an orderly manner. They were silent, like the silent terracotta army, with cracks all over their bodies. There was no other reason they would sleep for 100 years and wait to wake up after 100 years. The awakened god armor quietly changed, which Tang Tian carefully sensed. It was the decisive battle. It was as though an invisible hand was slowly carving them out from the illusory figures. And what Tang Tian needed was to sort out the disorderly and chaotic law threads of the god armor into order. With that, the law threads that originally relied on brute force to compress together and lacked variation, could now produce countless variations, which was undoubtedly a qualitative leap for the awakened god armor. He initially thought that the 14 fiery pillars were the great clan elder's true trump card, but he now knew that the great clan elder had actually prepared so many spirit generals. Spirit General Army. The great clan elder wanted to use the holy flames to create a Spirit General Army. In the current environment of the Saint Continent, the fighting capabilities of a Spirit General Army would be greatly increased. Other than the gray color of their skin that was unique to Spirit Generals, they looked no different from living humans. Their eyes looked as though they were formed from black seawater, bright and deep. But the scene just now was enough to cause Tang Tian to be cautious. When their bodies congealed, there was no longer any mist. They stepped on the surface of the sea and silently walked into the dense mist. They were born for battle. Following the absorption of the holofied energy, their bodies started to congeal at a speed visible to the naked eye, from the illusory figures to water to bones and flesh. My great axe has long been thirsty. At Tang Tian and Du Ke's level of cultivation, their predecessors were no longer able to tell them how to continue, or what their future path was. Inside the sea of holy flames floated densely packed red light cocoons, which were constantly breaking apart, and every time a spirit general walked out from one of the cocoons. There were already a large number of spirit generals in the holy flame ocean, and Tang Tian was able to determine their origins from the residual undulations on the spirit generals. When the two completely fused, an indescribable understanding flowed like a stream of water on a smooth cobblestone. Tang Tian quietly observed and experienced it. The fine black lines were the law threads that formed the awakened god armor, and they were constantly changing inside the glass light. The awakened god armor on Tang Tian's body was also quietly changing. The rainbow-colored glass light seemed to extend from the law threads to the awakened god armor. The gold awakened god armor started to have other colors, and started to emit vitality. They only had about 100 spirit generals on their side, which was much less than the opponent. It was just a quick glance, but he saw that there were at least tens of thousands of spirit generals. If Tang Tian saw them, he would be shocked. Tang Tian's physique was extremely tyrannical, and walking the path of hollowified energy was akin to neglecting the essentials. In truth, it was like what Dooku had previously understood. Tang Tian was like a tyrant in terms of laws. He used his powerful and pure brute force to forcefully fuse all the law threads together, and created the awakened god armor. Dooku knew that although it looked simple, it was actually extremely difficult. The logic was simple, but other than Tang Tian, who else could do it? On the ocean of peace that was permeated with mist, the figures that stood tall and straight looked just like 10,000 years ago. The great general who stood at the front silently raised the gigantic war flag and stabbed it into the ground. His soul and fleshly body had achieved the most perfect fusion. Dooku was still all right. His path was more conventional, although he had reached the limit, but there were people who had reached this place before him. Suddenly, Tang Tian noticed the changes in the undying sword. In the dark and cold seabed, groups of figures opened their eyes. Amidst the thick fog, the incomplete square formation was quietly being repaired bit by bit. One after another, silver light threads, like a school of fishes, knocked open the door of time, and visited the land of nothingness and silence. He could not help but admire the great clan elder's coldness and ruthlessness. Tang Tian was much more miserable. He loved to mess around too much. From a long time ago, his path had become different from others. For example, when he created the zero-energy body, his realm was pitifully low. And his awakened god armor was unprecedented, and he could not find anyone to learn from or guide him. He was already like that when he was not at his current realm, much less now. Tang Tian suddenly understood. The upcoming battle would be the most important and crucial battle in his life. As long as he defeated the great clan elder, temple would fall, and the honorable martial continent would collapse. He would no longer have any enemies in the Sacred Saint Galaxy. Victory in the Sacred Saint Galaxy would also bring him victory in Heaven's Road. The Sacred Saint Galaxy's resources, warships and armies were not something that Heaven's Road could contend against. As long as he could find the path back, Tang Tian could bring his gigantic fleet and sweep through Heaven's Road. Inside the whirlpool sword storm, Tang Tian's soul was being tempered even more. And when the last flaw was removed, his body trembled. An indescribable feeling of ease filled every corner of his body, as though he had been reborn. His enemies were unprecedentedly strong, the battle was unprecedentedly dangerous, but they were unable to avoid it. From the start to the end, the remnant spirits that refused to rest did not make any sound. They did not have the joy of being reborn. Even if they were reborn, they did not forget their mission, they did not forget their undying will. As long as he won this battle, no one would be able to stop him. But he quickly noticed that there were many undulations in the distance, and the undulations were increasing. The great clan elder seemed to have sensed him. He suddenly raised his head and looked in his direction. Snorting, countless of holy flames erupted, transforming into a gigantic screen of fire. Tang Tian's vision blurred, and he could not see anything. They converged from all directions and entered the silent figures. There were many of them, and they continuously entered the bodies of the cracked figures. As the silver light continued to enter, the cracks on the figures' bodies gradually healed. The figures' bodies continued to congeal as though they were walking out from the shadows. The contours of their faces became clearer and more solid, the corners of their mouths, eyebrows, nose. It was a realm that every cultivator yearned for, and in the history of mankind, the number of people who were able to do it could be counted with one's fingers. Just based on this point, Tang Tian was able to stand shoulder to shoulder with any of the legends in history, and laugh proudly at the heroes of the present. The glass fire in Tang Tian's body was an inspiration that he had obtained from Temple's holy flame. The most unique aspect of the holy flame was its ability to project laws. Tang Tian's glass fire was not a projection law, but a combo and optimization law. Tang Tian did not wish to walk the path of the hollowified energy. Although the hollowified energy was powerful and had many miraculous uses, but its attributes were all based on the word hollowified, and was most suitable for spirit generals to train in. They raised their heads and their bodies slowly floated up. Amidst the fog, A badly damaged square formation had silently existed at some point in time. The new soldiers walked into the square formation and consciously walked to the position of the incomplete formation and stopped moving. There was no doubt that the awakened god armor was powerful, but there was no more room for improvement. Tang Tian's control over the awakened god armor had become stronger, and more importantly, his fleshly body had become more tyrannical. The laws on the awakened god armor were disorderly, and that was the biggest reason for its might. From the glass mental realm to the glass fire, there were many coincidences and opportunities, but there were also many things that Tang Tian himself comprehended and had a flash of inspiration. Almost as soon as he thought about it, countless complicated pieces of information were gathered and organized in his mind. He saw a scene that shocked him. His mask had turned black. It was a deep and bottomless black, darker than the night sky, and it had restrained all of Tang Tian's undulations. His eyes had an additional layer of extremely thin and transparent light screen. It contained many light laws, and through the light screen Tang Tian saw that the world was completely different from before. Sounds, smells, temperature, etc. More and more law threads were activated and combined together, and Tang Tian realized that the world around him was becoming more and more foreign. Tang Tian quietly watched everything that was happening inside the undying sword, his heart filled with an indescribable emotion. When the cracks on their bodies were completely mended, when their bodies were completely congealed, they slowly opened their eyes. Their deep and resolute gazes pierced through the mist of time, illuminating the dark and silent ocean of peace. When Tang Tian saw the Southern Cross war flag fluttering once again, the fighting intent in his body was ignited. His cotton candy quietly stirred like a cloud, a thread of life force diffused out as though something was being nurtured inside. The cotton candy's shape started to change continuously, finally transforming into the shape of a flame. The glass mist that was even finer than sand transformed into a flame that slowly danced. Then he saw the great clan elder and Sophie. When they surfaced from the surface of the sea, the surrounding mist were attracted to them and surged towards them. The mist formed from the hollowified energy permeated through every part of their bodies, and they were like pieces of dry sponges that frantically absorbed the mist around them. The glass light contained all of his enlightenment, and was automatically optimizing the awakened god armor. Inside the undying sword, the quiet ocean of peace was filled with mist. The mist was so dense that one could not even see their fingers, as the endless hollowified energy was being absorbed into the sword, transforming into threads of mist. The ocean of peace that was shrouded in mist was extremely quiet, without any sound. When the mist met the ocean of peace, it quickly seeped into the black sea water, transforming into a faint silver light trace. Countless of light traces flashed past the black sea water, like the scales of a school of fish swimming. He could see many lights that he could not see in the past. He could see the law threads in the air. He could smell the faint smells in the past, and he could even differentiate the extremely complicated smells of the soil and what they were made of. He could sense the minute undulations from the other side of the Saint continent. When the remnant spirits at the bottom of the sea were awakened one by one, when the incomplete square formation was slowly mended, killing intent soared into the sky. Tang Tian's emotions surged and his fighting intent surged. Chapter 940. The collapsing storm turned into a gray torrent, sweeping and spreading in all directions. Although her entire body was enveloped in holy flames, Tang Tian could still recognize her, and his pupils constricted. Sophie. The powerful alliance of wealthy families had been destroyed in an instant before the great elder had even appeared. They did not even have the strength to fight back. When Jizai and the rest saw Sandra and the others, they couldn't help but sigh. They were all rich and powerful families with a long history. But now they had completely collapsed. Right at that moment, the holy flames above them suddenly surged, and layers of holy flame ripples converged above them from all directions. In the blink of an eye, it was as though a sun had risen above their heads. Countless holy flames converged and condensed into a blazing golden ball of light. Boom. The great clan elder was extremely calm in Temple's home ground who could stir up any waves. Inside every spirit general soldier's body, there was a radiant brand, and the general could directly use the brand to command the soldiers. All of these spirit generals that were selected from the countless survivors, after going through the baptism and nourishment of the holy flames, their strength had a qualitative leap, and their fighting instincts were much stronger than before. Temple only existed in name, but at that time the great clan elder was unprecedentedly powerful. He had sucked all of Temple's blood dry, sucked all of the life forms in the Saint Continent dry, and had set up a killing trap that far surpassed any other in history. In that moment the Holy Flame's Spirit General army had already formed up. Sophie stood at the front of the army, behind her were 13 Saint Spirit Knights, and behind the Saint Spirit Knights was an endless army. Dooku was admiring and studying the pillars of punishment. He was extremely interested in Temple's system. He was not a spirit general and the Holy Flame was useless to him, but the theory and creativity behind it could give him inspiration. The pillars of punishment were formed from holy flames, and its structure was more complex and mature, with many signs of optimization. The fireball seemed to be kneaded by an invisible hand, becoming flat and gradually turning into a golden door of fire. Sophie glanced at Dooku, who was in the sky. He was the only one in the enemy camp who could float in the air, so he was naturally eye-catching. Dooku felt Sophie's gaze and his heart trembled. The female spirit general's strength caused him to feel extreme danger. Let's start. Everyone was dumbfounded, even Duke was no exception. He had been studying the Pillar of Judgment and he knew how strong it was. Hundreds of pillars of punishment were connected through the holy flame screen, forming an extremely stable structure. The spirit general beside Xia, upon seeing that the enemy was also a spirit general, his eyes were filled with disdain. But as the opposing spirit generals continued to walk out from the light door, the expressions on their faces congealed. The spinning speed of the sword Tempest had slowed down, although it was just a little slower than before, but Dooku could sense it. Noticing Dooku's actions, everyone stopped what they were doing and raised their heads to look at the whirlpool sword storm in the sky. In an instant, the golden pillar of fire that had pierced through the clouds turned into a huge golden fireball with a diameter of 1 kilometer. Many people still had a look of confusion on their faces, not understanding what had happened. But those who were familiar with Tang Tian and trusted him were the first to react. Fu Jingji brought the God Armor army and rushed to Tang Tian's side without hesitation. The Great Elder was the last to emerge from the light gate. Xiaoman, who was at a loss, quivered. Protect young miss. The spirit generals by her side were all reborn, like 120 demon gods. The dense and cold killing intent almost caused the surrounding air to freeze. The phantoms in the air killed and they appeared next to Jia Shengguan out of thin air, looking disdainful and calm. Exen acted as if he did not hear Tang Tian's warning as he stared blankly at the undying sword in his hand. Suddenly he stopped what he was doing. He turned around and looked at the gigantic whirlpool sword storm in the sky. It was actually broken by the sword Tempest Cyclone. How powerful was the sword Tempest Cyclone? The entire honorable martial continent would belong to Tang Tian, and no one would be able to shake his hegemony. Adding that the Sin Domain and Heaven's Road had their own advantages, Dooku did not think that at that time, there would be anyone who could stop Tang Tian from unifying the sacred Saint Galaxy. Jizai and the rest were filled with admiration for Dooku. At this critical juncture he could still immerse himself in research. This state of mind was not something they could compare to. They were all very nervous. This was the final battle. Prepare for battle. Tang Tian was the first to notice that something was wrong and immediately reminded everyone. Snow City in the distance was left with ruins. It was completely destroyed, as though it was completely flattened by a gigantic foot. Not even a single building was left. They could feel the entire Saint Continent trembling. Bang bang bang. Their opponent was so strong that it caused them to feel despair. Tang Tian and the rest who had just come out from the sword Tempest Cyclone were shocked by the sudden tremors. Jizai and the rest's faces changed. Tang Tian remained calm. He had previously seen how the spirit generals grew. He looked at Sadra and the rest who were pale white, and knew that they had completely lost their courage to fight, and with their strength, they were of no help to the battle, and he had to divert his attention to take care of them. He instructed Jizai softly for Sadra and the rest to bring their own clansmen and Macefield tradings to immediately retreat far away from the battlefield. The great clan elder's face turned cold. Someone had destroyed the pillars of punishment. He thought about how he was spied on previously and was still thinking of how to find the culprit, but he never expected that the culprit would reveal his position. He only needed to find out which pillar of punishment was destroyed, and he would know the culprit's position. Intense explosions sounded out one after another, causing everyone who was running to feel the ground beneath their feet to tremble. causing them to almost lose their balance. Everyone's faces changed as they subconsciously turned their heads to look, and saw an extremely spectacular scene. Like a torrential flood, the torrent of holy flames struck the nearest pillar of punishment. The majestic pillar of punishment crumbled, and the holy flames flowed down like molten metal, causing the holy flame light screen in the sky to tremble. Seeing Sadra and the rest heave a sigh of relief and turn to run, Tang Tian retracted his gaze. Orderly footsteps came out from behind the light door. One after another, silent and austere spirit generals formed a golden torrent and walked out of the light door. Without any warning, the enormous tornado suddenly collapsed like a snowy mountain. Inside the surging torrent, there were countless sword auras mixed together. The soul-shaking screams and the wails of the tornado were mixed together, causing the sky to change color. Temple's fighting strength could be said to be the strongest in the entire Sacred Saint Galaxy. Furthermore, the great clan elder had schemed for over 10 years, and used the entire Saint Continent as a bargaining chip to lay out the killing formation. Suddenly, Dooku felt a tinge of regret. Why did I research on the Pillars of Punishment? I should have gone to research on the Sword Tempest Cyclone. I missed it. When the last spirit general walked out from the red cocoon, the great clan elder's agitated heart calmed down. Up until now, his plan was flawless. All the steps had been completed. Even the Holy Flame Spirit General army that he had prepared as a backup was completed. A figure wrapped entirely in holy flames stepped out from the light door. And when the 13 Saint Spirit Knights stepped out, the aura that lingered around their bodies seemed to have materialized, causing everyone's faces to change. And if the great clan elder won, it would be a true calamity for the Sin domain. Different from the honorable martial energy in the past, the golden holy flames in front of them were not weakened at all in the Sin domain's environment, and were extremely damaging to laws. If the great clan elder won, Temple's knights would definitely trample over every corner of the Sin domain. The great clan elder was even willing to take action against the citizens of Temple in the Saint Continent. Dooku did not believe that he would let the people of the Sin domain live. Everyone's faces changed, and without hesitation they turned and ran. No one could stop him. When he appeared, an earth-shattering pressure enveloped the entire place. Regardless of whether it was the demonic godlike 10,000-year-old spirit generals by Chia's side, or the astonishingly large Holy Flame Spirit General army, they were all ants beneath his feet, insignificant. The Golden Light Regiment continued to expand and transform at an astonishing speed, finally transforming into a light door. Countless of holy flames converged from all directions. The fire door's golden light suddenly increased in intensity, the dazzling golden light causing everyone to be unable to open their eyes. Inside the golden light, the light door slowly opened. As though they could feel the heaviness of the light door, the terrifying tremors spread out like ripples across the entire Saint Continent. The holy flames in the sky started to ripple, and all of the pillars of punishment started to tremble. The densely packed spirit generals floated quietly in the sky. Their auras were one, and the pressure they produced was as though a mountain was pressing down on them. Axen and the rest stood on top of the ruins in confusion. They did not understand what was happening. When Sophie heard Tang Tian call out her name, she looked at Tang Tian indifferently, then retracted her gaze. He said indifferently. He placed his palm on the pillars of punishment, causing the gigantic fiery pillar to tremble. In front of his unparalleled willpower, even the vast power had to submit. The gigantic fiery pillar had the holy flames flowing downwards, as though it was a melting candle. Regardless of whether it was the great clan elder or the despairing situation, it had far exceeded the limits of Jizai and the rest's understanding. To them, it was a different level of war. It was an extremely dangerous and difficult war, and the anxiety in their hearts was unimaginable. Dooku's expression was much more indifferent. The higher the realm, the more tempering and tests one's mental state would have to endure. The higher one's realm was, the harder it was to advance and ascend even a little bit. Without a matching state of mind, one would not be able to step into that realm. It was destined to be an extremely intense battle. Other than the death of one party, there would be no other outcome. The light door slowly opened and a pure and gentle golden light spilled out from inside. To the Sin domain, it was the best thing that could happen. They would be able to obtain more space to live, and would be able to return to the Sacred Saint Galaxy more easily, and better integrate into the Sacred Saint Galaxy. Right at that moment, the holy flames in the sky suddenly trembled. Dooku was much more optimistic, although the battle would not be easy, but as long as they won, no one in the entire Sacred Saint Galaxy would be able to stop them. Dooku had already decided to fight to the death. In the face of absolute power, all schemes were useless. Chapter 941. The great clan elder's body was like a compressed ocean. It was extremely solid. While Tang Tian's body was ethereal with no traces of energy undulations, he had unleashed the void to its maximum. On this point, the 120 spirit generals by Chia's side were the same. They had also been through the baptism of countless battles. Their wills were firm, although they could feel the great clan elder's overflowing aura. But their willpower that had been tempered through long periods of battles allowed them to maintain their ferocious fighting intent. Spirit generals? The two of them had completely different auras but were equally strong. Xan's nose suddenly turned sour. He bowed, raised his head and puffed out his chest and replied loudly, "Yes." Only Xiao Ran could see some signs. She seemed to have seen something flickering in Xan's eyes. For some reason Xiao Ran's heart was grasped by something. The great clan elder had long known of Dooku's existence, so he was not surprised and even smiled at Dooku as though he had met an old friend. Dooku sighed in his heart. As expected, the great clan elder is not an ordinary person. Even as an enemy, you have to admit that he has his own style. Come out, guys. Black seawater flowed out from the sword blade and extended along the ground. The undying sword transformed into a mist that pervaded the surface of the sea. The undying sword in his hand stabbed heavily into the ground as though something was stirring in his body. He roared out, "Come out! Southern Cross Army!" Right now the great elder was like a powerful bomb. The slightest bit of carelessness in his control, or the slightest bit of slackness, or even the slightest mistake, would lead to terrible consequences. The great elder would instantly be blown into ashes by the vast and violent energy. That's right, I knew you wouldn't think of it. If I was so easily thought of by you, how could I defeat you? Tang Tian was pleased. If he had a tail, it would definitely be pointing towards the sky. Tang Tian noticed the great clan elder's gaze. He suddenly raised his right hand and gently waved at the great clan elder, as though he was greeting someone he knew. Until his gaze swept across Tang Tian, his body suddenly stopped and his pupils constricted. An orderly group of black steel guards stepped on the calm surface, as though they had walked out from hell. Every single soldier had a cold expression. They did not look sideways, and there were no other noises in the group. There seemed to be no end to the soldiers who walked out of the fog. Their expressions were calm, but the killing intent around them was almost tangible, like a black fog curling around their bodies. Their bodies flashed with a breathtaking black luster. Southern Cross Army, Ocean of Peace, undead soldier spirits reporting for duty. Like chains dragging on the ground, the sound of orderly footsteps and the clashing of armor gathered into a torrent. Tang Tian's expression was calm. He wasn't intimidated by the great elder's aura at all. He didn't even see the sharp aura from Tang Tian. He was like an ordinary person who didn't cultivate, standing there quietly without any aura. The appearance of the great elder brought with it a suffocating sense of oppression, causing people to become absent-minded. Great elder sighed. It's a pity that the young man has such a deep prejudice against me. Looks like between the two of us, one of us will be buried here. The great clan elder's gaze flickered. He did not expect the opponent to have so many spirit generals. Furthermore, the quality of the spirit generals surprised him. Although the spirit generals by the lady's side felt the pressure from his gaze, but they did not have any intention of submitting, but instead stared at him fiercely. "Call everyone out." Tang Tian shouted, his expression faintly agitated. The heavy war flag smashed into the ground, causing the ground to tremble and soil to fly everywhere. The black Southern Cross flag fluttered in the wind. When the great clan elder's gaze landed on them, everyone felt as though their bodies were burning, and all of them were overwhelmed with shock. However, great elder remained calm and unperturbed. His crazy and callous heart was not only towards enemies, it was even more callous towards himself. Xan turned his face in a daze as though he did not understand what was happening. His expression was sluggish. The coarse and ancient voice sounded as though it came from 10,000 years ago. It resonated in the sky. "Haha." The great clan elder laughed. "With just you guys? Who gave you the confidence?" Not only was the great clan elder shocked, even Dooku was shocked. There were always some geniuses in the world that made people feel helpless. The great clan elder was like a dazzling sun, devouring everything around him. The 300 m radius around him was a law-forbidden zone. But Tang Tian was the exact opposite. His body's aura was perfectly fused with the space around him. His existence did not affect the law threads around him at all. He was like air. The great clan elder had spent so much effort to create spirit generals, but only a few of them were able to satisfy him. When he saw that the opponent actually had so many outstanding spirit generals, in that moment his calm and tranquil state of mind revealed a ripple. Although Tang Tian did not reveal any dangerous aura, but the great clan elder was able to recognize him with one look. He was the one who was spying on them in the dark. But what shocked him was Tang Tian's current state. Dooku, who was previously filled with admiration, froze and stared blankly at Tang Tian. The great clan elder still had the demeanor of an expert, but what about Tang Tian? His foolish look immediately destroyed the mentality of all the experts. If the great clan elder was a wolf, his eyes would definitely be lush green. Tang Tian looked at him as though he was looking at an idiot. Eternal existence? Who gave you that confidence? Today your dog's hit temple will be destroyed by me. In his eyes, the great clan elder's body was like a boundless ocean that had collapsed into a whirlpool, containing an endless amount of power. Even if the other party was just standing there quietly, but the 300 m radius around him was clean, as though it was an empty space without a single law thread to be seen. The other party's transformation could not be any simpler. It was to absorb the holy flames. But this seemingly simple method that did not require any technique. When the amount of holy flames reached a certain level, the difficulty was far beyond what anyone could imagine. To absorb the vast amount of holy flames into his body, and allow the holy flames to collapse and revolve in his body. But such a vast amount of holy flames required a terrifying amount of control. The great clan elder's eyes flashed. He spoke sincerely. Young man Tang is truly heroic. If young man is willing to join my temple, I am willing to give up my position as the great clan elder, and allow young man to be the leader. The great clan elder watched coldly from the side. He glanced at Exen and calmed down. He is extremely ordinary. There's nothing special about him. When Dooku realized that his state of mind was being taken away, he knew that he was at a disadvantage in the formless confrontation. Regardless of how cruel and bloody the other party's methods were, or how crazy the other party was, the other party's determination was extremely terrifying. Everyone's eyes landed on Exen. They did not understand, why did the master call for Exen at such a time? Exen is truly strange. Other people who came out from the tornado seemed to have changed into a completely different person, their strength explosively increasing. But Exen seemed to have changed as well. His previous quick-wittedness has disappeared, and he has become such an idiot. That's true. Tang Tian nodded his head unexpectedly. With just the few of us, it is not realistic for us to kill all of you. Call everyone out. The leader was a tall and sturdy general. He carried a gigantic war flag. The flagpole was thicker than his body, the black flag was as dark as the night sky, and the Southern Cross insignia shone like a star. The great clan elder's gaze swept past Ji and the rest. Without any undulations, the current level of people were no different from ants in his eyes. His eyes lit up. He always felt that his spirit generals were lacking something, and now he understood his spirit generals were lacking the ferocious aura. If the batch of spirit generals were to land in his hands, he was confident that he could create an invincible spirit general. Dooku's eyes widened. The might that the great clan elder was releasing was actually much stronger than the day he saw him. He initially thought that the great clan elder had already completed his transformation, and his strength had started to stabilize, but he never thought that the great clan elder would have another breakthrough. Why is there such a huge difference? Behind him, the black mass of battle formation was solemn and silent. He suddenly shouted, Exen! Huala huala! Exen looked at Tang Tian in a daze. Dooku, who was filled with shock, turned his head, his gaze landing on Tang Tian. Ignoring everything else in terms of how they treated him, Tang Tian and the great clan elder had some similarities. The great clan elder's gaze swept past Exen, but did not stop. The lifeless spirit general did not attract his attention. The pitiful Exen was directly classified as cannon fodder by the great clan elder. Even Dooku, a powerful martial artist who had already stepped into the legendary realm, was sighing. One could only imagine the strength of the two of them. When he saw Shao Ran, his feeling reached its peak. He was slightly surprised. There is actually such a perfect spirit general in the world. He did not know how Xiao Ran's ability to command was, but purely in terms of the spirit general's body, Xiao Ran was much more outstanding than Sophie. Sophie's talent was outstanding, but in the end she did not experience many real battles. Xiao Ran's talent was far from Sophie's, but when she was alive she was in the Three Great Armies War, and experienced countless of tough battles. After becoming a spirit general, her consciousness was not destroyed, and she fought in the ancient battlefield for tens of thousands of years. Adding that she liked to charge at the front, her body had been tempered through countless of battles and was close to perfection. What a ferocious spirit general! The great clan elder sighed. The most painful thing in the world is to admire people but have different ideals and have no choice but to kill them. Relax, after you die I will refine you into a spirit general, to protect Temple, and let you witness the eternal existence of Temple. I never thought that meeting the godlike young lad would be like this. The great clan elder suddenly laughed with a tinge of reminiscence. In the past when I saw the news of Heaven's Road from Temple, I felt that young lad Tang was extraordinary, but I never thought that you would grow to such a realm, and become the #1 enemy of Temple. When he realized that he was at a disadvantage, the first person Dooku thought of was Tang Tian. Tang Tian stared at the great clan elder, and after a moment he suddenly revealed a bright smile. His tone was indifferent but firm. If I don't kill you, how can I face the millions of vengeful spirits that died in the Saint Continent? In that moment the entire place became silent. Tang Tian sneered. And then refine me into a spirit general? The great clan elder's gaze swept across the entire place. He wanted to see who dared to become his enemy. Chapter 942. All of the spirit generals felt a jolt in their minds. The words seemed to have directly pierced into their brains, and their initially hazy and lost consciousness suddenly became clear. That's right. Sir General is right. They were not able to catch up to support the army, but it was also because the army was gone that they, the spirit soldiers, were left with the responsibility of protecting the glory of the army. The battle immediately reached its climax. It was the first time there was a commotion in the orderly formation. All of the soldiers' gazes landed on Exan. Exan's gaze swept across everyone and asked loudly, "We have not been destroyed in 10,000 years, why?" Because. Exan wiped his tears and walked to the leader of the group. He bowed and said loudly, "Southern Cross Army General Exan reporting for duty." Bang bang bang. Dooku stood up without hesitation and smiled faintly. The great elder's methods might seem powerful in the eyes of others, but in Dooku's eyes, such little tricks were not worth mentioning. Exan's heart suddenly throbbed in pain as though it was being stabbed by a knife. Hearing their self-blame, their sorrow and disappointment, the image of them charging forward like moths flying into a flame appeared in his mind, and the words, "Without knowing if the army is dead or alive, how can we rest in peace?" floated in the sky above the ocean of peace. It did not matter if they lacked training, they just had to train more. It did not matter if they were injured, there was an endless supply of holy flames. It did not matter if they died, they would be eliminated and the remaining would be the elites as for cannon fodder. All of the soldiers' eyes dimmed down, and sobs sounded out from the formation. Many of them were fading away bit by bit. They were originally remnant spirits, but because the obsession in their hearts had not disappeared, they bitterly held on, and were not destroyed by the passage of time. But upon hearing that the army was gone, they felt that there was no meaning in persevering for so many years. Without the support of their beliefs, their bodies would melt like snow and disappear. Rumble rumble. The gold formation and black formation faced each other, with a clear distinction between them. How is that possible? The great clan elder felt that his understanding of spirit generals was completely toppled. As long as our spirit soldiers are not destroyed, the Southern Cross Army will not die. We have already thrown the passage of time behind us, we have already pierced through reality after 10,000 years, we have once again reunited on the battlefield, and we are once again standing shoulder to shoulder. The oath we made back then is still raging in our hearts, and the war flag is still fluttering above our heads. The opponent's spirit generals were not any less than his, and what made it even harder for him to accept was that the quality of the spirit generals were much higher than his Holy Flames Spirit General Army's spirit generals. The great clan elder revealed a satisfied look. Even after the opponent had displayed his strength, Sophie was still unaffected, and his own spirit general did not show any signs of fear, and welcomed the enemy without retreating. The great elder witnessed the entire process with his own eyes. There were a few times when he wanted to interrupt, but he didn't know how. The attachment and recognition these spirit generals had towards the army was truly astonishing. He was a little envious. How could he have such loyal and devoted subordinates? He floated to Xian's side and drew a circle in the air with his palm. The burly man returned the greeting and said in a deep voice, "General, according to the wartime regulations, you will be given the highest authority. But before that, General, can you tell us, is the army still there?" The soldiers raised their heads and looked at the general, who wasn't very strong, with tears in their eyes. Xian's entire body released a biting cold aura. He was like an unsheathed sharp sword that no one could block. Looking at the golden formation in front of him, his mouth revealed a disdainful smile. "All of you are just a bunch of empty shells. Come, I will let all of you experience what an army is. Thinking of defeating me here is just wishful thinking." All of the proud soldiers' dim bodies once again congealed, and were even more congealed than before, their faces releasing a different kind of light aura. The holy flames in the sky trembled intensely, and the holy flames scattered in all directions. How can I rest in peace without knowing the life or death of the army? After the initial shock, he had already calmed down. The sudden appearance of the Spirit General Army had disrupted his plans, but he was still extremely confident. "This is the Saint Continent, there are countless of holy flames here. It is the home ground that I have meticulously arranged. The enemy's arrangements are extremely targeted. It is obvious that they have studied the holy flames seriously. But do you think that I only have these methods?" He raised his arms high and roared angrily. "Furthermore, do you think my home ground is so easy to deal with? As long as they are here, the army is here." Because he knew how they had survived for the past 10,000 years, he knew that every 100 years, they would be like moths flying into a flame and smash themselves into pieces. Sophie bowed and accepted the order. He turned and led the Holy Flames Spirit General Army to attack. Whoosh! The golden torrent also rushed forward. Bang! The surging fighting intent soared into the sky, like a flood dragon soaring into the sky. It fiercely smashed into the holy flame light screen in the sky. The forthright man's tears flowed down. He sobbed, "We are too late, we are still too late." That's right, it has already been 10,000 years. Southern Cross Army advance. He had never heard of any spirit general that could last for 10,000 years. Facing everyone's gaze, facing the piercing golden light, Xian suddenly thought about Screw, who had been howling in the ice coffin for 10,000 years. Suddenly thought about the little brat who wanted to bring back the glory of the mechanical army and pass down the traditions of the army. Thought about his everyday for the past 10,000 years. Thought about how everyone had exchanged 100 years of slumber in the ocean of peace to be like moths flying into a flame. He quickly threw that thought to the back of his head. It was not important at the moment. Only the people who win this war will have a future. Who else but me? For the first time, his frivolous face revealed an unparalleled arrogance and disdain. He pointed to everyone, then pointed to his chest and said word by word. When all the old soldiers gathered together, their stern aura immediately suppressed his Holy Flames Spirit General Army. An indescribable undulation spread out, and in the sky above the army, a faint halo appeared. When the Holy Flames landed in the halo, they were quickly destroyed. The holy flames transformed into threads of hollowified energy, replenishing Xian and the rest's losses. This was what he had learned from Tang Tian's Sword Tempest Cyclone, but his control over laws was even more profound, and although it did not seem powerful and could not be compared to the Sword Tempest Cyclone, but it was still able to replenish the losses of his soldiers. He smiled with confidence and said indifferently, "Sophie, I'll leave everything to you." The ocean of peace, the land that contained the hopes and hopes of the living, had become the battlefield that they had never given up for 10,000 years. The great clan elder looked at Dooku. He was not surprised. Although the exchange between him and Dooku was short and restrained, but the two of them knew of each other's brilliance. Dooku's ability to use such a unique method to change the energy of the holy flames made his eyes light up. Hey, it's been 10,000 years, but the Southern Cross Army is still the Southern Cross Army. Southern Cross Army? Suddenly, the great clan elder thought about the origin of the name. It had once appeared in the reports of Heaven's Road. That was an ancient army that had long been destroyed in history. How can there still be so many spirit generals left? 10,000 years for a spirit general to be able to withstand the corrosion of time for a few hundred years. That is already extremely powerful, but 10,000 years, what kind of concept is that? It was so long that even the spirit generals wanted to commit suicide. The great clan elder sneered in his heart. The great clan elder's eyes constricted. He knew that he had truly misjudged. General Ah Xin, he is the general spirit general that killed the Qiu offense army. He never thought that the spirit general who had a blank face was actually Ah Xin. At the same time, Tang Tian was also shocked. He knew that the undying sword had undergone a qualitative change in the sword Tempest Cyclone, and knew that the remnant spirits had reformed their bodies. But seeing them walking out of the undying sword silently, seeing them carrying the Southern Cross Army's war flag and walking out like that, his heart was filled with an indescribable emotion and sorrow. A cold light flashed past the great clan elder's eyes. He gently flicked his finger in the air, and as though an invisible string connected to the holy flame light screen was plucked, countless of holy flames rained down. They are duty-bound. But not only that, there are so many of them. Ah Xian's gaze was resolute. He looked at the new soldiers. His heart was similarly in turmoil, the intense fighting intent burning in his body. When he shouted out those words, all of the haze in his heart was swept away. That's right, so what if the army is gone? They are still here. The entire battlefield sunk into an indescribable silence. Only the sound of the war flags fluttering in the wind could be heard. Every word of Ah Xian's was powerful and resonant, fiercely nailing into the hearts of the soldiers. They wiped away their tears, raised their heads and puffed out their chests. The army is no longer here. Ah Xian's voice was calm. The spirit general soldiers were swift and fierce. Their fighting intent was high, their discipline was strict. Every single one of them had the temperament of a veteran that had been tempered and tempered on the battlefield. Hey, it's been 10,000 years, but we are still us. We are here, the army is here. He took a deep breath and using all of his strength he shouted, but we are here. But to him, controlling the holy flames did not require much energy, but how long could the enemy last? Below him the gold torrent and black torrent clashed together. The black torrent slowly advanced forward. Their speed was not fast, but they had an unstoppable imposing manner, enough to crush all the enemies in front of them. When the holy flames landed on the holy flames spirit general army, the aura of the holy flames spirit general army suddenly surged, and when it landed on the Southern Cross army, it was immediately weakened by the enemy's killing intent. But with the interference of the holy flames, their aura became sluggish and they were slightly disrupted. Tears flowed out of Ah Xian's eyes. His comrades, his seniors, were standing in front of him, fighting side by side with him, for the name of the Southern Cross Army to fight. When he saw the unknown darkness, the spirit general army that had fought for 10,000 years, their bodies shattered over 100 times, truly struggling free from the ocean of peace, truly reforming their spirit bodies, truly bringing with them 10,000 years of unwillingness and longing, walking out of the ocean of peace, seeing them standing under the Southern Cross Army's war flag and shouting, an indescribable emotion surged in Tang Tian's heart. The great clan elder stared in disbelief at the sudden appearance of the Black Spirit General Army, his eyes staring blankly. Where did they get so many spirit generals from? For the sake of forming the Holy Flames Spirit General Army, I have sacrificed so many lives. Chapter 943. The great clan elder's attention was completely attracted by the large-scale army battle below. It was a rare sight for two elite armies to clash. She sat there quietly until the sunset was swallowed by the night sky. She stood up and returned to the side palace. When he realized that the great clan elder's attention was attracted by Ah Xin, he immediately knew that it was a good opportunity. The great clan elder's face changed. Illusion. Tang Tian's face changed. Without hesitation he opened up his arms. Countless of law threads intersected in the air, like vines growing frantically, transforming into a wall of laws. His awakened god armor was activated to its limit. A transparent light aura lit up from the laws, forming a wall of light behind them. The great clan elder felt as though he was in a strange and dazzling world. His eyes were filled with all sorts of colored light spots. His ears were buzzing and all sorts of weird sounds filled his ears. Sophie, you trash. It is said that His Majesty had stayed in Star Wind City when he was young, and has deep feelings for it. No. All of the members' power of laws were completely sucked out, converging into a small black arrow on Tang Tian's fingertip. The arrow was completely different from the arrows formed by the usual number 9 tactic. The arrows formed by the usual number 9 tactic were sparkling and translucent, with ice markings and dark red blood webs, and inside the blood webs were light and flame markings. The small arrow that looked like a wisp of black smoke filled everyone with curiosity and anticipation. Dooku immediately thought of illusions. It was the most useful method for beginners. Dooku's standard was extremely high. The illusions he created not only touched upon light laws, but also sound laws, spatial laws, etc. The moment the army moved, a look of shock flashed past Jize's eyes. Behind her, 120 spirit generals slashed out at the same time. The great clan elder's movements suddenly stopped. The center of the honorable martial imprint on his forehead had an additional finger-sized hole. In the entire battlefield, Xiao Ran was transparent. No one paid attention to her. Sophie's opponent was Xin, while the great clan elder was guarding against Tang Tian. Other than Tang Tian, Dooku was the only one who posed a threat. As for Xiao Ran, to the great clan elder, she was the perfect spoil of war. Chia's eyes were focused on the battlefield. Her mind remained calm. Even when the great clan elder used such a vicious technique, she was not excited at all. The entire battlefield was so clear in her eyes. The area with the most self-destruction was the area where both sides intersected. On the battlefield, Asin, Duke and the others immediately reacted. Their expressions changed drastically as they turned around and ran. At this moment, Tang Tian finally made his move. His movement was so fast that no one could see it clearly. In the ice room there was only an ice coffin and a youth was lying quietly in it. Bang bang bang. Although the power within the great elder's body was terrifying, his comprehension of the laws was not high. Boom. Jize suddenly frowned. He had a feeling that he had missed out on something important. The only difference was that the great elder felt that he was still in control of the situation and only needed to guard against the enemy's sneak attacks. Among these people, the only one who could pose a threat to him was Tang Tian. In Tang Tian's eyes, these tactics were too crude. The great elder shook his head inwardly. He had spent so much effort, but the situation was still being suppressed by the other side. It seemed that he would have to find a few more powerful generals. Sophie was still too young to take on great responsibilities. Pay attention to your safety. Tia reminded. He could clearly feel the holy flames in his body going out of control. He wanted to laugh out loud but no sound came out. 120 blade auras entered Xiao Ran's blade auras, and like a crescent moon, they shot towards the great elder. He was completely unprepared. The great elder was shocked. He subconsciously used his hands to block Xiao Ran's blade aura, while frantically activating his holy flames to devour the laws related to the illusions. Dooku, who had just appeared, was struck by the palm. His face changed and he activated his law domain to its fullest. A dazzling light aura blossomed from behind everyone, and before Sophie and the rest could even explode, they were engulfed by the dazzling light aura. The great elder was immediately hit. The great elder suppressed the rage in his heart, and looked at the blade aura that resembled a crescent moon, his eyes turning cold. Bang! The holy flames in the sky blossomed with light aura, and the surging holy flames surged from all directions. Everyone on the battlefield were shocked by the great elder's palm, and there was even a momentary pause. In the blink of the eye, the entire battlefield was dyed with a strange dark red color. An excessive amount of energy was a form of destruction to tactics. A faint light aura imprint flickered on the soldier's forehead, causing him to reveal a look of struggle. A ray of holy flames flew down from the holy flames in the sky, and the moment the holy flames touched the soldier's body, it was dyed dark red. The holy flames started to grow, and the bright red light extended to the soldier's knees. But he did not sense any energy undulations at all. And Master's control has actually reached such a level? After quietly finishing her dinner, she went to the ice room as per usual. The zanbato in her hand gathered all the power in her body and slashed out. Chia looked at the familiar face quietly. Duca said that there was still a trace of life left in his body, and she was waiting for him to wake up. But the energy that he had injected had far exceeded the energy required for the number 9 tactic. With so much energy, how is Master going to handle it? No matter what tactic it was, the more energy the better. Not only was it not good, it would have many restrictions. Although I don't know what killing technique Big Brother Tian has prepared for the Great Elder, but I know that Big Brother Tian is waiting for an opportunity. Beat me up like a dog? I haven't taken care of him for a few days and he's already so arrogant? No, I can't take this lying down. The soldiers of the Holy Flames Spirit General Army, regardless of strength or experience, could not compare to the Spirit Generals of the Southern Cross Army. Even with the replenishment of Holy Flames, they were still suppressed to the point that they could not even lift their heads. Cut in from there and then rush to the left. As long as you create an opening, leave the rest to Ah Xin, he will make good use of it. The opponent's formation will lean towards Ah Xin. You try to take a roundabout route and cut in diagonally from behind Sophie. Duke, who struggled to climb out from the deep hole, he wiped the blood from his mouth. It was the first time he was in such a difficult situation. He had suffered such a heavy blow. His law domain had started to crack under the berserk attack. The Great Elder was truly terrifying. His body seemed to contain a berserk ocean. It was the first time Dooku had tasted such an astonishing power. It was as though Xia had cast a spell on him. How can Dooku, who has gained enlightenment on a law domain, be an idiot? The moment he was injured, he immediately realized that his strategy was wrong. The power in the Great Elder's body was extremely terrifying, and if he were to clash head-on with him, he would only be asking for trouble. When Xiao Ran brought the Spirit Generals and suddenly cut in behind Sophie and got close to the Great Elder, it attracted Sophie and the Great Elder's attention. Xiao Ran's charge did not attract much attention from the Great Elder. He was currently focused on capturing the opponent's Spirit Generals and guarding against Tang Tian. He had long coveted the Spirit Generals, and did not hesitate to sacrifice his own Spirit Generals to seize control of the Spirit Generals. But what surprised him was that the power of the Ocean of Peace was much stronger than he had imagined, and he had no choice but to expend more power to suppress the Ocean of Peace. Ah Xin immediately realized the benefits of Tang Tian's suggestion and roared, "Undying Sword!" The blood cocoons on the soldiers all exploded. "Luckily I have a backup plan," the Great Elder laughed, and the honorable martial imprint on his forehead suddenly lit up. Bang! Amidst the chaotic battle, a soldier of the Holy Flame Army suddenly exploded, transforming into a golden holy flame with a tinge of dark red. It was extremely bewitching. A Spirit General of the Southern Cross Army who was closest to the explosion was infected by the dark red holy flame. In the Great Elder's heart, these people were not even considered his soldiers, and in his heart, there was no one who could not be sacrificed. Xiao Ran's charge was extremely smooth. Her charge was much stronger than Ah Xin, and the Spirit Generals by her side were much stronger than the ordinary Spirit Generals of the Southern Cross Army. Tang Tian had obtained a huge improvement in the Sword Tempest Cyclone, especially his understanding of laws, which had a qualitative improvement. This was something that Tang Tian had sensed the change the moment he connected to the God Armor Army. All of a sudden, the fixed pattern that he had trained for a long time had been toppled, and Jizai was stunned by Tang Tian's unfathomable control. It was not only Jizai. All of the members of the God Armor Army were shocked by Tang Tian's sudden move. The Great Clan Elder never thought that I would actually lose to an illusion, but you guys can't win either. And Tang Tian also thought that he had the advantage because he had companions and he trusted them. She had long become impatient. The battle in front of her was so intense, but she could not participate in it. To her, it was a form of torture. He secretly signaled to Jizai and Fu Jingji with his eyes, and the God Armor Army quietly moved. In the past, the tactics that he had prepared for the God Armor Army were relatively stiff and rigid, and were pieced together from various laws. Tang Tian's expression remained the same. He had clearly seen the Great Clan Elder's mocking look. But the battle between the two parties had just begun, and just like how the Great Clan Elder knew that he was waiting for a chance to deal the fatal blow, the Great Clan Elder had long noticed the killing technique in Tang Tian's hands. Tang Tian's face suddenly changed. "Quickly run." It was Dooku, who had just crawled out from the deep pit, who looked like he was on the verge of death, who suddenly made his move. Buzz, a sword hum came out. The undying sword flew into Ah Xian's hands, and the black ocean of peace extended out from beneath Ah Xian's feet. The familiar aura of the black ocean immediately caused the soldiers who were dyed by the dark red holy flames to calm down, and the honorable martial imprints on their foreheads gradually dimmed. Tang Tian did not immediately attack, but patiently waited for an opportunity. She was instructing Xiao Ran softly. Her tone was calm and confident, which made people believe her. She was unable to participate in the battle at this level, and if she were to lead the troops to attack, she would have to divert everyone's attention to take care of her. The honorable martial imprint on the Great Clan Elder's forehead became even brighter. The aura around his body suddenly surged. The terrifying power caused Duke's body to tremble, his vision blurred, he was unable to react in time. Boom, he was forcefully smashed into the ground, leaving behind a large pit. Tang Tian's reminder sounded out in his ears, causing Xen to quiver. He struggled free from the rage, feeling ashamed in his heart. I should not have been blinded by rage during the battle. If Tang Yi was here, he would definitely recognize it. It was his most proficient heavy spear assault. But in Xiao Ran's hands, the heavy spear assault did not have any fiery aura. The control of the brand new awakened god armor had increased by leaps and bounds, allowing Tang Tian's control over the god armor to increase by leaps and bounds. Jie glanced at Tang Tian, who was in the distance. She understood her brother Tian too well. Not making a move after so long is not in line with brother Tian's personality. Then there is only one possibility. Brother Tian is waiting for an opportunity. The great clan elder's face immediately darkened. He naturally did not place such an attack in his eyes, but in his eyes Xiao Ran and the rest were like ants. But he never expected that the ants in his eyes would actually take the initiative to attack him, and even allowed them to get so close. It was the crucial moment for him to seize control. Damn it! But it will not be easy to defeat me. Yes. Chia said seriously. I have noticed Sophie's habits. She likes to protect the flanks. It is a very orthodox response. So she will definitely use the main force to deal with Xen. She wants to share the pressure with the great clan elder. So this is your chance. You can cut in behind Sophie and attack the great clan elder. Remember, one move and only one move. Do not get close, do not hold back after attacking, immediately retreat, do not hesitate. Do you remember? Chia sat on the boulder, propping up her chin. She looked into the distance. In the past, he would come here every night to train his fundamental martial techniques. Before she left Starwind City, she would sit on the boulder like this and watch him perspire profusely. Jizai's eyes lit up. He knew that he had missed something. Energy undulations. He actually did not feel any energy undulations. He almost screamed out, "That's impossible. There are so many different types of energy stacked together. How can there not be any energy undulations?" Wait a minute. Without waiting for them to react, Xiao Ran took a deep breath and bellowed, "Kill!" Seeing that Sophie's formation was tilted by Xen, Xiao Ran did not hesitate. She brought her spirit generals and quietly made a big circle. Young Miss is the goddess of war who defeated Xen. 5 years later. Bang bang bang, one after another, the holy light flames spirit generals exploded, transforming into dark red holy flames. He did not move at all. The holy flame pillar on his right arm shattered. Tactic number 9 was the tactic they trained the most, and he was naturally extremely familiar with it. But the feeling this time was completely different. Usually he needed to be extremely focused and pay attention to the coordination between his comrades. The most difficult part of tactic number 9 was the linking and stacking of different types of energy. If any of the steps were off by 1/100th of a second, it could cause the power to decrease. For the sake of linking up accurately, they had to suffer a lot, and only then did they become more proficient. But even so, they had to be 120% focused in battle. If not, any negligence could cause them to fail on the verge of success. A dazed and angry voice came out from the ice coffin. The soldier's movements suddenly froze. The red holy flames seeped into his body. Brandishing out his blade aura, Xiao Ran remembered young Mrs. Warning. Without even looking, he turned and ran. The leaders of both sides were outstanding military generals. They were able to use special methods to directly give orders to their subordinates. The armies were as nimble as their arms. All kinds of dazzling tactical coordination and confrontation were playing out at an astonishing pace. But what caused him to be dumbstruck was that he watched as the different attributed energies continuously gathered and stacked together. The entire process was as smooth as flowing water, without any sluggishness. If not for Jizai being extremely familiar with the energies, he would have thought that they came from the same source and were extremely close to each other. However, in his usual training, he knew how violent these different types of energy were. Just by stacking them together, they would be blasted to the point of being covered in dirt. The great clan elder looked at Tang Tian with a face full of ridicule. He ignored him and raised his right arm. A pillar of holy flames descended from the sky and enveloped his palm, connecting him to the holy flame screen in the sky. He appeared extremely calm. Even when Xen was talking to the spirit generals, most of his attention was on the great clan elder. The danger of the battle was unprecedented. and Tang Tian's attention was unprecedentedly focused. His rich battle experience told him that the situation on the battlefield could change in an instant, and opportunities could appear at any time, but they would disappear in a flash. If he was not focused, even if the opportunity appeared, he would not be able to grasp it. The dark red holy flames that were initially being devoured by the ocean of peace erupted with light aura. Once again taking the initiative, the blood cocoons started to grow again. Xiao Ran was extremely excited. "I'm going, miss. Since it's like that, why not avoid the main force and attack the weak point?" "I will remember it." Xiao Ran nodded her head. Maybe others would have doubts towards such an order, but Xiao Ran did not. Furthermore, the quality of the soldiers on both sides had a huge disparity. His Majesty's secondary palace was at a mountain peak outside the old city district of Star Wind City. The scenery of the mountain peak was extremely ordinary, but no one knew why His Majesty liked it so much. For the sake of infecting more soldiers, the great clan elder had purposely lengthened the line of defense. Because of that, their original formation had been compressed to the point of being flat. He raised his left arm and was about to make a move, when his eyes suddenly blurred. Sophie's talent was unquestionable, her energy was outstanding, but she had many weaknesses. For example, her commanding ability was outstanding, but she had pitiful experience in commanding. One reason was that she had little battle experience, and the other was that she had little experience in commanding large armies. The Banner of Knights did not have any missions, so they naturally had little battle experience. Sophie had always been the commander of the Banner of Knights. The Banner of Knights was a small army of a few hundred men, and Sophie had never encountered such a large army with tens of thousands of men. The heart-wrenching screams were engulfed by the endless light aura. Sophie stopped moving. The light aura imprint on her forehead suddenly blossomed with a dazzling light aura. The other Holy Flames Spirit General Army soldiers also had light auras erupt from their foreheads, as though they were immobilized and could not move an inch. And Dooku was very clear that he did not need any killing methods, he only needed to distract the great clan elder. Behind Sophie? Xiao Ran did not understand, wasn't the defense there extremely sturdy? They had never seen a number 9 tactic like this, nor had they seen a number 9 tactical arrow like this. Xian's eyes almost popped out. He never thought that the great clan elder would actually use the bodies of his soldiers as weapons. From the day he joined the army, everyone had treated him with care and concern, and after he became a military general, he started to treat his soldiers with care and concern. He had never thought that there would actually be someone who would be so ruthless to use his own soldiers as weapons to attack the enemy. Star Wind City was currently the hub that connected Heaven's Road and the Sacred Saint Galaxy, and the area of the city was much larger than before. But the true prosperity of Star Wind City was related to the Empress's favor. Ever since the Empress unified the Sacred Saint Galaxy and Heaven's Road 3 years ago, the Empress had moved to Star Wind City. Dooku suddenly appeared behind the great clan elder like a specter, but the great clan elder seemed to have sensed it and slapped his back with a strange angle. Jizai and the rest's faces all turned white. That was Dooku, the number 1 man of Sin Domain, to actually be slapped into the ground. This. As per usual, she spoke gently. "Big brother Tian, when will you wake up? Tomorrow is your birthday and they will all come over. You have not seen them for many years and they are all very powerful now, so quickly wake up. If not, tomorrow Ling Su will definitely say that he will beat you up like a dog." The gigantic explosion caused everyone on the battlefield to tremble. But this time, Jizai felt as though he was being pushed forward by an invisible hand. It was extremely smooth and natural. What surprised him even more was that his power of laws was continuously flowing out, completely out of his control. If not for his complete and unconditional trust in Tang Tian, he would have long been afraid. Tang Tian had been staring at the great clan elder from the start, his gaze never leaving him for a moment. In his eyes, the great clan elder was the most important enemy. He did not try to close the distance between the two of them, as he knew that would easily attract the great clan elder's wariness. Sophie started to fall into a disadvantage, which did not surprise the great clan elder, but to fall into a disadvantage so quickly made him feel dissatisfied. He felt that Sophie was obviously not strong enough to support her military general system. He had prepared tactic number 9 for the great clan elder, the God Armor Army's strongest single-ranged attack tactic. And her opponent, Xian, regardless of whether it was actual battles or commanding large armies, he had extremely rich experience and was extremely shrewd. Sophie's weakness would be grasped by him, and the opponent would slowly expand his advantage. Ocean of Peace. Seems like I can only use that move. As expected, everything is as the young miss had predicted. Chia, who was sprinting, suddenly sensed something and turned back. When she saw Tang Tian opening up his arms inside the wall of light like a moth flying in amber, her mind buzzed and all the blood in her face disappeared. He felt that it was inconceivable.